When two people can't resolve a disagreement for themselves, they need a third person to get involved. And in an escalation from a gentle nudge up to the judicial system, mediation is the first formal step. Since conflict can be fairly common in organisations, it's as well to understand what mediation is and what it can and cannot offer, and the basics of how it works. Part 1. Why use mediation? When two people can't resolve a conflict for themselves, they need help. And when it matters enough, they might go out and seek that help. Alternatively, if it matters enough to the organisation they work for, that organisation may impose help. And there is a hierarchy of the levels of help that they can seek or that the organisation can impose. Broadly, there are 5 levels. Level 1, informal assistance, which is well-meaning but untrained. Level 2 is formal mediation, which searches for an agreement using a trained practitioner. Level 3 is arbitration, which imposes a resolution on the two parties, usually by someone who is trained, but it can be by someone who has no training. Level 4 is a tribunal. This is an enforceable resolution to the problem that is imposed by one or often a group of people who have some training. And level 5 is recourse to law. This is where highly trained people make a decision that can be enforced legally. So, mediation is a skilled response to escalating conflict. We use it when well-meaning but untrained support is not enough to resolve the conflict. Its benefit is that mediation can create a space for the parties to reach an agreement and resolve their conflict before it escalates out of hand and needs a more heavy-handed approach to resolving and de-escalating the conflict. In addition, if we compare mediation to more formal approaches to resolving conflict, it can be a lot less costly to the organisation and a lot less stressful for the participants. Part 2. What is mediation? Mediation is an effective way to resolve disputes. It uses an independent person, the mediator, who has no connection to the two people who are in dispute, and neither do they have an interest in what the dispute is all about. Their job is solely to help both sides to reach an agreement that satisfies both of them. Our modern word mediation comes from the Latin word mediare, which means to be in the middle. This gives us a good sense of what it means to mediate. It's about getting between the two parties and helping them to communicate more effectively with one another and thus reach an agreement despite the outward conflict. The principles of mediation are highly flexible and they can be used to resolve conflicts in a very wide range of different situations. Examples include disputes concerning relationships, customer rights, contracts, family, neighbours, employment, or indeed the activities we carry out within our jobs. Importantly, the mediator's role is to help the parties to reach their own solution, rather than to suggest, and certainly not to impose, a solution of the mediator's own design. The task of mediation ends when either both parties reach an agreement that satisfies both of them, or both parties and the mediator conclude that no such agreement is possible. As a result, a mediator must avoid taking sides. They must treat both parties equally and fairly. A big part of this is making sure that the two parties treat each other with respect, and if they can't, the mediator will separate them so that they can mediate the conversation without the party's disrespectful behaviour or tone of voice interrupting the conversation. The mediator must reflect and clearly restate the views of the parties as they have expressed them. It is not their job to make judgments or to put interpretations on those views or assertions. Both parties must see the mediator as independent and with no interest in the outcome. Therefore, mediators are responsible only for the process, not for the outcome itself. And that process is principally about making sure that both parties are and feel that they can express their opinions and that they will be heard, and to make sure that each party actually listens to and hears the message of the other party. This respectful listening is always going to be a prerequisite for reaching an informed agreement. Because it needs both parties to reach that agreement, and both parties must feel that it is a fair agreement and that they accept it, they need to accept both the process and the mediator as an individual. The process also needs to be confidential. The mediator needs to establish ground rules around confidentiality so that both parties can feel that they can share their perceptions with the mediator and that the mediator will not relay anything that they've heard during the mediation process outside the walls of that process. Part 3. Workplace mediation. In the workplace, mediation is often described as a process of alternative dispute resolution. It's used as a step before more formal grievance or disciplinary or even tribunal procedures. As a result, the informal and voluntary nature of mediation means that whilst the result may be morally binding, it is not going to be enforceable. What mediation can achieve, however, is better communication, empathy, and working relationships, helping the two conflicting parties understand each other's points of view and share an empathy for the other person, explore particular concerns and consequential issues in a safe environment, reduce the barriers that entrenched views can create, allow joint problem solving to find a solution that both parties find to be fair, and develop the skills of the two parties to help them find resolutions for themselves without the need of a mediator in the future. Part 4. When should you consider mediation? Of course, mediation won't resolve every dispute and conflict within an organisation. But there are a wide range of circumstances in which it might be a great help. These include personality clashes, relationship breakdowns, and a lack of communication. But clearly, the big one, the one that tends to drive us to mediation, is a fundamental disagreement about something that the parties consider to be important. Mediation is perhaps best used in situations where there is no obvious single right and wrong perspective, where the parties' differing views are both legitimate and the answer is not obvious from an external point of view. Also, it's worth saying that mediation works really well with colleagues who are at the same level of the organisation as each other, or with colleagues at even widely differing levels. The mediator will respect the individuals as individuals rather than the rank or grade or seniority that they carry. And whilst you can use mediation at any stage in the escalation of a conflict, frankly, if it looks like it's not going to be resolved by the parties, the sooner you engage in mediation, the better. Some organisations also use highly skilled, well-trained mediators to deal with thornier issues. They do this in the hope that they can avoid serious grievance or disciplinary procedures or even the need to go to law. Examples can include bullying and harassment. If these can be resolved properly through mediation, without clouding over the issue and letting the bully off inappropriately, then it can save all of the parties a lot of stress, and it can save the organisation a lot of money and time. However, these are serious issues, and a weak attempt at mediation by an unskilled practitioner can make things worse rather than better. This can place the organisation at a greater risk, and therefore the decision of when to use mediation and which mediator to use needs to sit at a fairly senior level within the human resources team. Part 5. When should you not use mediation? Mediation is unlikely to be an appropriate response in a number of circumstances. Firstly, if you try to use mediation as a way to avoid your normal and proper managerial responsibilities, things like work allocation or day-to-day reprimands. Number 2, when a clear decision about right or wrong is needed. For example, in disciplinary or even criminal cases. Number 3, when one party wants a formal investigation of an allegation. For example, in cases of alleged harassment or alleged deception. Number 4 is when one of the parties cannot participate fully and properly in the mediation process, or will not be able to give informed consent. For example, due to mental incapacity, severe stress, learning disabilities, or other mental health conditions. And number 5, when the parties do not have the authority to resolve the issue. For example, contractual issues that are raised at mid or low levels of the organisation. Part 6. How does mediation work? A mediation process is usually highly structured. Many mediation training programs and professional mediation providers often have their own structured proprietary mediation process. In general terms, however, we can expect the following steps. Step 1. The mediator meets each person individually. They listen to each person carefully, understand what they want from the process and get a sense of what the dispute is all about. And then they confirm that each person is prepared to engage with the mediation process and understands what it is, how it's going to work, and what its limitations are. Assuming all parties agree to the mediation, we move to step 2. Step 2. The mediator once again meets with each of the parties individually to share what they have heard from their counterparty. They also use this meeting to help to plan the meeting where the parties come together. Step 3. The mediator facilitates a meeting between the two people. They facilitate the conversation to ensure that both parties are able to speak their minds and to ensure that each party listens to the other. They enforce rules of good respect and courtesy at that meeting. They will ensure that all issues are raised, and they then help the parties to consider the issues, to discuss them, and to find ways around them. This way, they can start to build an agreement. It's worth noting that in some extreme cases, the mediator will not feel that they can get the parties together into one meeting, and therefore the meeting takes place with the two parties in separate but closely located rooms, with the mediator shuttling between them. This process allows the party to discuss without having to meet one another face to face. The mediator is truly mediating the discussion because they are carrying the words of one party to the other. Step 4. the parties reach agreement. As part of this, the mediator will document the agreement and ask each of the parties to endorse that agreement in an appropriate way. Often, this will take the form of a written agreement that both parties will sign and that the mediator will also sign as a witness. In our shuttle mediation process, the mediator should, at this final stage, be able to bring the parties together. After all, if they're both going to agree to the same resolution, then they at least need to be able to look one another in the eye and be in the same room. Step 5. The mediator will close the meeting. They'll provide a copy of the agreement to both parties, and they will reiterate to both parties together what their responsibilities are under that agreement. If there is no agreement, then the mediator will describe what needs to happen next. Step 6. In many cases, mediators will accept a responsibility for following up with the parties to ensure that both of them comply with their sides of the agreement. They will monitor progress and formally sign off the mediation when the terms of the agreement have been met. Part 7. Confidentiality of the process. It is essential that whatever is said during the mediation process, whether by either of the parties or by the mediator, remains confidential. Unless, that is, the parties all, including the mediator, agree otherwise. This means that organisations cannot peek into the mediation process that they have set up. The things that are most likely to be shared outside of the process are the final agreements, the decisions, the actions that the parties agree to take. Now, clearly there have to be some exceptions, where illegal actions are disclosed or there is some serious risk of harm that emerges during the mediation process. So, mediation is a great way to resolve conflicts that the parties cannot resolve for themselves. Within an organisation, it is useful to have a small number of people who are trained in mediation. And if you're someone who really enjoys the process of talking and listening hard to people around you and helping resolve conflict, then training as a mediator can be a valuable and fulfilling aspect of your career. Please do give this video a like if you've enjoyed it or learned from it. I'll be making loads more great management courses videos for you, so please do subscribe to the channel and hit that bell so you don't miss any of them. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and in the meantime, keep learning.